Yo, what's up guys? Today I want to share a final update to the Arbiter Paladin build for Diablo 4 Season 13. Now I've spent a lot of time trying different ways to play the build, different variants, and trying to find the thing that scales the best at endgame, and this is what I've come up with. It is an evade-based hammer Arbiter build, which means we can trigger our blessed hammers every time we evade. We use the Argent's Veil, which is every time you evade you trigger a core skill, and for us that is the blessed hammer, and it deals increased damage. And then we use the Arbiter's Zephyr aspect, which means our Arbiter's evade cooldown is reduced by up to 3 seconds, meaning we get increased damage, really good mobility, and we don't have to worry about faith regeneration because this is casting when we evade, so it's not using any faith. Now this is easily my favorite Paladin build. It's so much fun to play. It can speed farm in tier 12, I've shown some footage in the background, and it can push in the pit fairly high, but set your expectations a little bit lower because Paladin is not the strongest this season, and there is only, I believe, one Paladin build that is clearing 140s and above, and it's pretty mind-numbingly boring to play. So set your expectations around when this is fully geared, you're going to be doing about 125s. So let's get into the full build. Okay, let's start with the skill tree. So from the top, we do not take any basic skills. We take a core skill is Blessed Hammer. You want to put 15 points into this, and every single chance you can get, you want to put extra points into this. It's our main damage dealer. Here you want to go for the damage bonus because we don't really need the resource cost reduction because we have the evasion and we can cast it by just dodging. Then we have the Blessed Hammer cast speed, increased cast speed, and the hammers travel faster. And then you need to get Disciple's Halo. Very important. There's no switching here. This has to be a Disciple skill to work with all of the Arbiter abilities. Then we basically take a bunch of buffs. We take a bunch of things that either make us stronger or give us more defensives. So we start with the Phantasm Aura. You want to 15 this because this gives you attack speed and crit strike chance. Then you want to go into here and you want to get passive stacks one additional time, and you want to get increased resource generation for you and your allies. Now I've just said resource cost doesn't matter. However, most of you, myself included, will not get a perfect roll on your boots. So on your boots here, you have the Arbiter Zephyr. This means the evade cooldown is reduced by up to 3 seconds, right? If this isn't perfect, if you don't have a perfect evasion cooldown, then you are going to have to cast some hammers manually between your dashes. So for that reason, you do want to get some sort of resource regeneration here. Then I would go for Rite of Vengeance, which gives us increased crit strike damage, which is our main scaling damage for endgame. Then you want to get the Defiance Aura, which is armor and resistances. You can go here so that you can also gain resolve from this. We are a resolve stacking build for the tankiness at endgame. And then you can go for the potency here. And then finally, I would go for this where it heals you, and healing yourself also grants you resolve. Now what you'll see in this build is you will hit your max resolve pretty fast, but it will start to dip a little bit. With this, it won't dip. So then you can come down to here and you can get Aegis. Aegis is again in the defensive. We gain block chance. And when we get over the gear, I'm going to talk about the aspects, but our block chance and our blocks reduction is very, very, very important in our endgame defenses. So you want to get this. Now, I've toyed between taking points out of this and putting them in here and putting them back, and they feel very, very, very similar. I would say try them both on your build, depending on your stats. You might find one pulls you a little bit further ahead, but I like it like this. Then you want to get the cooldown reduction here, and then again, you want to get increased your block damage reduction here. And then finally, gaining or spending resolve has a chance to trigger this for free, and casting it grants you resolve. With that all set up, you have pretty much permanent uptime on your resolve. Then you would go for Condemn. So I dropped out Falling Star for Condemn for 2 reasons. One, every time you cast this, you go in the air for a second. That is time in the air, not dealing damage. So min-max in the end game, I took it out. And secondly, there are some nice buffs that you get for having this, which you don't really get for this. Like as you get to the end, it's just extra damage. All we're really using this for is for triggering our Arbiter form, but we can just do it with Condemn because this is also a Disciple skill with a cooldown. So you want to get this, and then you want to go here and you want to get cooldown reduction. You want to come down here and you want to get size increase. And then finally, I would go here to pull the enemies in. Because we're spinning hammers around us, pulling the enemies in will give us, well, there'll be more enemies getting hit by our hammers, right? And that's when you see that big cluster and all the numbers flying out, and it feels really good. It's because of this. Then finally, you want to go for the Arbiter form. You want to come here and you want to 15 out of 15 this. You want to come here and you want to get reduce the cooldown, and then you want to go here and you go increase the duration. Doing that gives us 100% uptime on our Arbiter form without needing to, pretty sure you don't have to stack any Arbiter duration tempers. And then finally, I would go for the wings here. I've tried a few different things and I still think the wings are the best just because these aren't that great for this build. But that's the skill tree. For the Paladin Oath, we go for Disciple. Casting a Disciple skill with a cooldown grants you Arbiter form for 4.5 seconds. And the main benefit of this means we're always in Arbiter form and always gaining all of the benefits from being in Arbiter form, being the movement speed, the leaps, the wing strikes, the evasion, everything like that is triggered because we're always in Arbiter form. Now, you don't have to worry about this too much in this endgame version because we have with our Paragon node, there's a Paragon which gives us a cooldown reduction on our other skills. We have Condemn, which triggers our Disciple. So you have very high uptime, if not permanent uptime on Arbiter of Justice. You will almost always be in your ultimate form apart from on some bosses. Okay, now let's go over the gearing, and this is going to be the biggest section because we're going to be talking about the mythics, the aspects, the uniques. We're also going to be talking about best stats, tempers, and all that stuff. Now, what I will say is this is the end game pit pushing tier 12 version. If you're looking at this and seeing all these mythics and going, I can't do that, there is another version on the full build guide which has other alternatives you can use rather than these mythics. So, if you're still grinding these mythics out, there'll be something you can put in place of them. But let's go through it. So you want the Air Expedition. This is pretty much the best helmet in the game for most builds. You want to get because it gives you so much stuff. It gives you core skills, it gives you movement, lucky hit, crit chance, and a giant damage boost as the main ability. Then Tyrael's Might, probably the single best defensive chest in the game. It has damage reduction, resistance to all elements, resistance to all element percent. It's amazing. And then you also have the little bit of damage as well. This is just a phenomenal chest piece. And then I would go for the Starless Skies Ring. Again, ranks to core skills. Blessed Hammer is a core skill. We have the spending your resource reduces the resource cost of your skills and increases the damage, which means we're increasing the damage of our Blessed Hammers. Has crit strike chance, and it's a very, very good ring for this build. I've tried without it, and I can't find any ring craftable that matches the damage we get from this. Okay, so for the uniques, there are 3 that work very well. You've got the Herald's Morningstar, 100% increased damage to Blessed Hammer, and Lucky Hit has a chance to spawn a Blessed Hammer. The Argent Veil, Arbiter's Evade triggers a core skill. So every time you evade, you trigger a hammer. Very good. And then your core skills deal increased damage during your evasion. So it encourages you to evade more because you're also dealing more damage. The other unique that works really well is this one. You can put it as a charm, Griswold's Opus. Dealing direct damage grants 1% increased crit strike damage for each enemy hit within 10 seconds up to 50%. Now, because we are jumping in with these hammers and we have all the like 20, 30 hammers spinning around us, we're going to reach that very, very, very fast. And then at the max, you have a chance to deal double damage. So this is a very, very good one, and you can get it as a charm. Just put it in here. You don't have to worry about equipping it. Okay, now for like the stats, the tempering, and the mechanics of the build we'll get into. So number one I want to talk about is resolve stacking. This is popular on every build, so it's worth listening to if you've never heard it. Skip ahead if you know about it. So you want to get resolve stacks everywhere you can. You can temper this on your helmet, your chest, your legs, and your amulet. And you can see you can temper it as at the bottom as an extra thing. So when you get a greater affix temper, which you can get very, very easily, you just keep resetting your tempers and going over and over and over. I've got a full video on that. The last one I did talks about how we can do that. You can hit greater affix tempers very, very well, which means you can hit a +7 to max resolve stacks very easily. If you then hit the greater affix on that resolve stack, it turns into 12. So you can get 12 resolve stacks on your helmet, your chest, your legs, and your amulet if you hit everything right. If you don't, you're going to be sitting between 30 and 40 resolve stacks, which is really good, but you can get up to 50. So this is very, very good. Now, why do we want resolve? Well, we go for it with this. We go for the Glynn's Anvil. Now, they did a big hot fix recently, which made this work again, and it's incredible. Your max resolve is increased by 2, and you gain 4% damage reduction per resolve. So if we have 50, stacks of resolve times 4%, that is an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage reduction. And it's why we can pretty much just stand in mechanics in high pit levels, tier 12 and above. You can just stand and take hits and you're completely fine. You're going to notice when you walk into the dungeon, you feel like paper, you spin a few hammers, your resolve hits max, and you just become a complete tank. So that's the first mechanic that is really important to understand. Then we have the block mechanic. So we have this thing here on our amulet called Redirected Force. You gain increased crit strike damage equal to your block chance. Blocking doubles this bonus. So our block chance increases our damage. For that reason, we also want to take Interdiction, gain block chance per resolve. And like we've said, we have up to 50 resolve times 3%, means we have a giant amount of block chance, which means we're blocking more, we're not taking as much damage, and we're getting a massive amount of critical damage as a result. So those mechanics are pretty important to have going. The other things we go for is the cooldown. I think I've spoke about this, the Arbiter Zephyr, evade cooldown reduced by up to 3 seconds. You want to hit this as high as possible because the higher this is, the more time you can spend evading and having the damage increase, and the less time you can manually cast and go through your faith. And then the Holy Punishment is a pretty good one, which gives us up to 60% damage increase on our Blessed Hammers. So that's pretty much everything with the gear. Now, I've said all of your defensive tempers. For offensive tempers, everywhere we go, we want to get crit strike damage. Crit strike damage is pretty much the go-to on almost every build, as it scales so well. So everywhere you can find, and uniques are random, similar to legendaries. Uniques are random stats. So every hammer you find will have different stats on it, other than the thing at the bottom. So everything you find, you want to be looking for crit strike damage, crit strike chance, and crit strike multiplier. So something like this, where it has crit strike chance, is pretty good. Something like this, where it has like all damage multiplier, vuln damage multiplier, crit strike damage multiplier, is all very, very good. We deal vuln damage, our wings apply vuln as well. We have all damage, crit strike damage, anything like that is very, very, very good where you can find it. Then you want to be looking for things like holy damage multiplier. That's pretty good. You can get ranks to blessed hammer on your gloves, and I think you can also get, I've got one down here. Yeah, you can get ranks to disciple skills on your amulet as well, which is also an increase to blessed hammer. So there's a lot of really good stats, but I've listed them all in a lot of detail on the build guide for every single item. But yeah, that should cover gear pretty well. I think that's everything you need to know. The only other thing is you can do Arbiter's duration on your boots, or you can do movement speed. Whatever you need to hit 100% Arbiter duration is pretty much it. The runes, I guess we could say the runes. So I like this one, go in for Sem Cry. So we get the Vortex, so we pull the enemies in. That combined with Condemn pulls enemies in, and Vortex pulls enemies in, means we don't really have these enemies just straggling around. We can just keep evading, keep pulling enemies in, and our hammer hits everyone. And the other one I'd go for is the Rogue's Dark Shroud. This is a defensive stackable thing down here. You'll see an ability down here, and it's just a really good damage reduction. But yeah, that's pretty much it for gear. On the talismans, I would be going for the Griswold's Opus, as we've already mentioned, is an incredible unique charm because it gives us stackable crit, and crit is our main source of endgame scaling. And because we have so many small hammers, we rack this up really, really quickly. For the tier set, Light's Epiphany, it's the Arbiter tier set. It's incredible. Get the 5 out of 5 of this. What I would do is try and get wherever you can ranks to your skills. So you can see plus the core skills will give you ranks to Blessed Hammer. Plus 2 disciple skills will give you ranks to Blessed Hammer. So try and get things like that wherever you can. I've only got it on a couple. You can do a lot better than this. You can also hit greater affixes, which will give you, multiple ranks above this. So yeah, try and get as many ranks to Blessed Hammer on your tier sets as you can. But yeah, that's everything for the gear. Now let's talk about the Paragon board. So from the start, go down both sides, get all those buffs, and come into the middle. And in the middle, I would go for Resplendence. This gives a buff to your magic nodes, and after casting an aura skill, you reduce the cooldowns of non-aura skills, because this will reduce our ultimate and things like that. This is very, very, very good to get in early. You don't really need to get all of the, strength nodes around it like the other ones, because there's no bonus to doing that, but it boosts all of these passives here. You've got damage to elites, which is very, very important. This is a build that does not have a ton of single target damage. So anywhere we can squeeze a little bit out like that is very important. On the next board, I would flip it and go for this. I would go for Divinity. While in Arbiter form, you deal 90% increased damage to vulnerable enemies. I would get everything you can. Anywhere you see armor, life, block chance, my next points are going in this cluster here. And on the build guide, I've clicked all these. You want to be getting armor and block chance wherever you can. Come and get the vulnerable damage. Come up to here and get Sentinel. Now Sentinel, for every 5 strength, this isn't going to make much sense at first, but every 5 strength, you deal increased Juggernaut damage. We don't deal Juggernaut damage. So why we're using this, it's for the second bit. You deal 1.5% increased damage for each stack of Resolve you have. And like I say, if you build this right, you are going to have around 50 stacks of Resolve, which is a giant multiplier on your damage, which is worth having regardless of all the other stuff. So you just want to get 40 strength to have this active. You also gain a bonus damage to close enemies once you hit level 100 with the glyph. So I'd go for that and then get all the nodes around it. Right, then I would go right and I would come and flip your board like this and go for Castle. Increased damage equal to 125% of your damage reduction from armor. This can go pretty high because I'm currently at 95%. This can go very high. Get all your armor and things as you can. As your extra points, you want to get your armors. Come down here, get your block chance. Very important to put extra points in here when you have them. And then come down into here and I would go for Spirit. Every 5 willpower increases your critical strike damage. Critical strike damage is the most important thing. I think this glyph for me is around level 100. This can go much higher. I think it can go to 150. So that's why I say the build can go even further, because there's a lot of strength that's around here. And as you scale your glyph level up, this damage percent goes up even more. And then doing crit strikes increases the damage the enemies take from you. Is probably one of the most important glyphs. Coming over here, I would go into the Beacon. While you have at least an ally or mercenary, you deal 90% increased damage. You'll always have an ally with you. You'll always have a mercenary with you when you're playing solo. And you should be right near your allies when you're playing in a group, so you should always get the bonus from this. It's a permanent damage upgrade. And then I come down into here and I get honed. Every 5 intelligence increases crit strike damage. Again, get every single intelligence node you can get. I've showed on the build guide every one you can get. There's even one here at the very bottom you can come and flip down and get as well. But yeah, you can get a lot here. And then when you do crit, you gain faith. So if you do end up in a point where you've run out of faith and you don't have the regen, you can get it just by critical hitting, which we're doing all the time. I think I've got around 60% crit strike chance unbuffed, so you can get a lot of crits. So you're gonna feel that. Then I would come up, back up here, come up to the top, and I would go for the shield bearer. You deal increased damage to 110% of your block chance. You know, this, as you get into combat and your buffs start ticking up, you're going to scale your block chance much higher. So you're going to really feel that. You can come into here and you can get Apostle. Every 5 strength increases your disciple skill damage. Hammer, the hammer is a disciple skill. So this is a multiplier on our hammer skill damage. So you want to get all of the nodes around here. I think there's 105 altogether to really pump this up. So that's the full build. That's everything there is to really know about the build. Now, I'm gonna just put this at the end as a just a conversation piece for those that care. If you just care for the build, see ya. But I just want to talk about Paladin a little bit. I've played a ton of Paladin. I've played Paladin the last 2 seasons, and I love Paladin. I think it's probably my favorite class in the game, and I will always make Paladin builds. I think it is one of the most fun, aesthetically classes available. But definitely this season, it has a problem. It is not scaling as high as other classes, and it has, 1, its abilities just don't scale as far, and 2, it has a little bit of a problem on single targets. So as you start to get into the late pit pushing, you start to struggle. You can clear the pit pretty fast, but then you get to the boss and you just don't have the damage to burn it down compared to other classes. So if your ambitions for the season are to get to tier 12, speed farm tier 12, maximize your war plans and have fun like that, Paladin's great. I love this build and I've taken it as far as I'm having fun with it, and I'm still going to keep playing it. I really like it. But if your ambition is to be the top of the leaderboard, be hit 150, don't play Paladin. That's the best advice I can give you. In terms of the builds available, I'll go to the leaderboard and show you. There is an absolutely dry, awful build that I've tried it. I would not recommend anybody try this build. Do not try this build. It's the Righteous Will build. It's this one here. It uses the Righteous Will, and everyone you see on the board going from 130s to 140s use this. It is an auto attack build. It's honestly so painful and unfun. If you want to do it just to be on the leaderboard, go play any other class and you'll have more fun. It is a tragic build in my opinion. In terms of the other builds available, you've got this one. This can get up to, I've spoken to some people that play this, and it seems like the consensus is around 120 to 125 is the absolute ceiling so far, unless some new tech gets discovered. In terms of alternatives, I've seen one other build that looks quite promising, and I've done a bit of looking into this, and it does look like it can go quite far. Somebody called AO Elena has a build where they use Zeal Spin, and it uses Dauntless Faith, I think, and it looks really promising. They've hit 120 and they're trying to push further with it. So go check that out. That looks like it might be a nice alternative to the awful auto attack build on the leaderboards. So yeah, that one looks quite promising, and you know, we might see that one hit in the 130s, 140s, but that Paladin is Paladin. If you enjoy this build, play it and have fun for what it is. But yeah, I hope some people find some tech and get really deep with some interesting builds. And if I make anything cool, I'll update as well with some cool endgame builds. But thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the build. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.